Okay, let's kick things off. $9.5 billion. Just think about that number for a second.
Yeah, that's what the global market for gynecology devices is looking like for 2025. USD 561.6 million specifically.
It's pretty staggering. And these are devices for procedures maybe we don't always think about day to day, you know? Things like assisted reproduction, treating fibroids.
Right, or screenings like colposcopies, hysteroscopies, even sterilization, prolapse repair. Basically, the tools doctors need to either work on tissue or just get a really vital look inside.
Exactly. But it's not just the size, it's the growth trajectory that really caught my
Oh,
eye.
absolutely. This isn't a static market at all. It's expected to, well, almost double by 2033.
Double. Wow.
Yeah, the forecast is USD meeting 74.2 million. That's a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 8.80% starting from 2025. So, yeah, it's expanding pretty rapidly.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. Let's try and get, understand what's really going on behind those big numbers.
Sounds good. We need to look at the current landscape, where it's headed.
Yeah, like where is this growth happening? Who are the main companies involved? And crucially, what's actually driving it all? We've got a report here packed with details, so let's unpack it.
Okay, so anchoring ourselves again, 2025, we're talking USD 561.6 million globally.
Right.
And then zooming ahead to 2033, that figure climbs to USD 19,774.2 million.
With that 8.80% yearly growth powering it.
Exactly. And it's worth remembering the time frame here. The report uses 2024 as the base year, look back from 2021, and is projecting forward from 2025 all the way to 2033.
So a solid foundation for those forecasts. Good. Okay, geographically then, where's the action concentrated right now?
Well, North America is currently the biggest slice of the pie, over 40% of the market, actually.
40%, okay.
Yeah, that translates to a USD 337.79 million in 2025. Their growth is projected at 7.3% per year. Still strong, but maybe not the fastest.
Why do you think North America holds that top spot? Is it just established infrastructure?
That's likely a huge part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well-established healthcare systems, easier pathways for getting new devices approved and paid for, plus a lot of the big med tech companies are based there.
Makes sense. And Europe.
Europe's also a major player. Over 30% market share. That's around USD 2,772.86 million. And their growth is actually a little bit quicker than North America's at 7.8% CAGR.
Okay, but the real growth story seems to be elsewhere, right? I saw something about Asia Pacific.
Oh, definitely. So APAC starts at about USD 224.78 million in 2025, which is roughly 23% of the total market.
Okay.
But get this, their projected CAGR is 11.6%. That's significantly higher than anywhere else.
11.6%. Wow. What's fueling that?
The report points specifically to government initiatives. Things like promoting family planning, birth control, that sort of thing seems to be really driving demand in the region.
Interesting. So we might see APAC taking a much bigger share over the next decade then.
It certainly looks that way. Then you have South America. It's a smaller market, USD 363.34 million, just over 5% share, but still pretty robust growth expected there too, 9.5% CGR.
Okay. What about the Middle East and Africa? Often smaller markets, but sometimes surprising growth.
Exactly. The Middle East is estimated at USD 382.46 million for 2025, about 2% share, but growing strong at 10.1% annually.
10%.
And the report mentions rising investment in healthcare facilities as a key factor. Qatar, for instance, is highlighted about 30 million market size, growing at 9.6%.
So building up infrastructure is boosting the market there.
Seems like it. And Africa starts smaller still, USD 210.36 million, maybe 1% share. But again, solid growth forecast at 9.1% annually.
And any specific factors mentioned for Africa?
Yeah, the report suggests maybe an increased focus on education and preventive care is playing a role. Nigeria is mentioned, about a $17 million market growing at 9.3%. So maybe more emphasis on women's health starting to make a difference.
Fascinating. It's like a global puzzle, seeing how all these regions fit together. Okay, let's zoom in a bit more. Any specific countries that stand out in the report?
Unsurprisingly, the U.S. leads the pack for individual countries. Huge market size in 2025, nearly $2.8 billion. USD 27,791.32 million to be exact.
Wow. And growing at?
7.1% annually.
Yeah.
Solid, given its size.
And elsewhere in North America?
Canada's got a significant market too, about USD 424.54 million,
Yeah.
and actually growing a bit faster than the U.S. at 8.1%.
Okay.
Probably reflects that advanced healthcare system. Mexico is also notable, around USD 321.94 million, growing at 7.8%.
Okay. Shifting over to Europe.
The UK shows up strongly, about USD 465.84 million market size in 2025, with a healthy 8.6% CAGR.
And the report links that growth to something specific.
Yeah, increased awareness around women's health issues. Seems more awareness leads to more screening, more treatment.
Which makes sense, Germany.
Germany's even bigger in market size, about USD 549.03 million, growing at 8.0%. And again, the report notes that increased awareness factor. France is also significant, around USD 255.1 million, 7.6% growth.
Right. Now back to that fast-growing APAC region. China must be a big part of that.
Oh, absolutely. China's market is substantial, USD 963.81 million in 2025. And that growth rate is impressive, 11.1% annually.
And why such strong growth there, apart from the general regional trend?
Well, the report suggests rising healthcare costs might actually be playing a part, perhaps reflecting more adoption of advanced and maybe more expensive technologies and treatments.
Interesting angle. Japan.
Japan's also got a solid market, USD 316.68 million, growing at 10.1%.
But wasn't there one country with even faster growth projected?
Yes, India. The report highlights India with the highest country-level CAGR, a really remarkable 13.5%.
13.5%. From what base?
Starting from about USD 229.48 million in 2025. The driver there seems to be simply increasing demand for treatment overall, more women seeking and getting care.
That's encouraging. And quickly, South America. Any standouts?
Brazil is the key market mentioned. USD 155.51 million in 2025, growing at 10.1%. Unfortunately, the report links this partly to a rising incidence of gynecological diseases driving the need for these devices.
Right. Okay, so that detailed country view really adds color. It begs the question, though. What are the big underlying forces pushing this whole market forward globally?
Good question. The report identifies a few key drivers. Number one is, well, simply a rise in gynecological disorders.
Like what, specifically?
Think about conditions like endometriosis. A WHO report estimated, 190 million women and girls affected globally? That's huge.
190 million, it really puts the need into perspective.
It really does.
Yeah.
And then you have things like cervical cancer. The American Cancer Society projected nearly 14,000 new invasive cases in the U.S. alone for 2023, leading to over 4,000 deaths.
So the sheer prevalence of these conditions creates a fundamental need for diagnostic tools, surgical devices.
Precisely. It directly fuels the demand.
Okay, what else is driving growth?
Another major factor is the aging global population.
Ah, the demographic shift.
Exactly. The WHO said by 2030, 1 in 6 people globally will be 60 or over. By 2050, that number hits 2.1 billion.
Wow.
And with aging comes increased healthcare needs,
For sure.
including issues related to menopause, other age-related gynecological conditions, so
Yeah.
more demand for devices.
That makes sense. And there was also something about awareness.
Yes, and this is a really positive driver. Growing awareness about women's healthcare and, crucially, better access to care in many places.
So as women know more and can actually get to a doctor.
They're more likely to go for regular checkups, screenings, seek treatment earlier,
Right.
which naturally expands the market for these devices. The report even linked rising awareness in the UK and Germany directly to sales growth there.
Okay, so those are powerful growth engines.
Yeah.
But surely there are factors kind of pulling back, any restraints mentioned?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The main one highlighted is the flip side of awareness, a lack of awareness about gynecological health,
Especially with
particularly noted in developing economies. This, unfortunately, can lead to delayed diagnosis, not getting enough treatment, and that holds back market growth.
and cultural factors too.
Definitely. The report mentions cultural taboos, stigmas around women's reproductive health. These can really hinder open discussion, education, and ultimately access to care in these technologies.
That's a really important point. Technology is one thing, but access and acceptance are another. Okay, shifting gears towards the future. What are the big trends shaping how these devices are evolving?
Well, no surprise here, technology is front and center, like in so many areas of healthcare.
Any cool examples?
Yeah, the report mentions Boston Imaging, which is part of Samsung. They launched something called the Hera W10 Elite back in February 2023.
An ultrasound system?
Yes, but way more advanced. It uses AI, artificial intelligence, and has these really sophisticated visualization tools, things like MV Flow, which lets doctors see tiny blood vessels in 2D and 3D. Plus AI features like Heart Assist, View Assist. They help automate measurements and potentially improve diagnostic accuracy.
So much clearer, more detailed images, potentially catching problems earlier.
That seems to be the goal, yeah. Better diagnostic insight.
And it's not just diagnostics, right? Innovations in surgical tools, too.
Correct. Olympus Corporation, for example. They launched a device called the Gardenia Contained Extraction System in September 2022.
What does that do?
Okay, so sometimes in surgery, tissue needs to be broken up to be removed. That's called morcellation. But there can be a risk of stray cells spreading. This Gardini system is designed specifically to contain that process, making it safer. Plus, it apparently helps manage the incision better, too.
So advancements aiming for better detection and safer procedures. Seems logical.
Exactly. It's a pretty dynamic area for innovation.
Now, who are the companies driving this? Who are the big players?
It's described as a highly competitive market. You've got your big global corporations, but also smaller, more regional players.
But some names dominate.
Yes. Companies with strong product lines, wide distribution, and big R&D budgets tend to lead. The report names Richard Wolf, GmbH, Hologic Inc., Boston Scientific, Stryker, Karl Storz.
Familiar names in medtech. And are they active, like buying other companies or launching new stuff?
Oh yeah, constantly. The report gives examples like Hologic buying Gynesonics just last October in 2024.
What did Gynecologics bring?
Their Sonata system. It's a minimally invasive way to treat uterine fibroids using ultrasound within the uterus. So that bolsters Hologic's offering there.
Strategic move.
Definitely. And another example was Ethicon launching a new powered stapler, the Echelon Circular, back in 2021. They claimed it had a lower leakage rate than a competitor's product. So you see that constant push for improvement and competitive advantage.
Right. The report listed quite a few companies overall, didn't it?
It did. Beyond those we just mentioned, it also included Medtronic, Cooper Surgical, Ethicon, which is part of J&J MedTech, Coke Medical, Bayer, Gatamed, Genex Corp. It gives you a sense of the breadth of companies involved. Okay, useful context. Now, let's look at the types of products. How does the market break down that way?
Primarily into surgical devices and diagnostic imaging systems.
And which one is bigger currently?
Surgical devices, they apparently dominated in 2025, taking the majority of the revenue.
Why is that?
Seems to be driven by high use of things like female contraceptives, but also endoscopic devices for procedures. The report even mentioned Cooper Surgical seeing a 26% jump in sales for related products in one period, which kind of highlights that demand.
26%, wow.
Yeah. And just the overall rise in surgical procedures means more demand for durable, sterilizable instruments.
Makes sense. But what about the diagnostic side?
That's where the rapid growth is expected. Diagnostic imaging systems are forecast to grow really quickly. Which ties back to those tech advancements like AI ultrasound we talked about.
Exactly. But it's also linked to just the sheer number of pregnancies globally, both planned and unplanned.
Unplanned pregnancies drive diagnostic demand.
How so? Well, the report cites a UN statistic. Something like 121 million unintended pregnancies happen each year globally. That's almost half of all pregnancies.
That's a staggering number.
It is. And whether planned or unplanned, pregnancies require monitoring. So imaging like ultrasound, sometimes CT or MRI, becomes crucial for checking fetal health, diagnosing issues, driving demand for those systems.
Okay, got it. So let's try and wrap this up then. We're looking at a gynecology devices market that's, well, already huge, nearly $10 billion.
It's set to grow significantly, heading towards maybe 19 billion by 2033.
Driven by things like more gynecological conditions being diagnosed and treated, our aging population, and thankfully growing awareness and access to care.
Right. Although lack of awareness in some regions is still a challenge.
And we're seeing fast growth, especially in the Asia-Pacific region, fueled partly by government initiatives.
Plus continuous innovation in technology, smarter imaging, safer surgical tools.
All happening in a competitive space with major global players constantly innovating and making strategic moves.
And while surgical tools are the biggest chunk now, that diagnostic imaging piece is really the one to watch for rapid growth.
So when you put it all together, the health trends, the demographics, the technology, it really makes you think, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It really prompts the question, how will all these forces continue to shape women's health care in the coming years? What other innovations or maybe entirely new approaches might we see emerge to meet these evolving needs?
Definitely something to keep an eye on, a critical area of healthcare that's clearly undergoing some major changes.